What is surprisingly still legal in 2019? Civil forfeiture, in which the government can take your assets if you're just suspected of a crime, under the pretense that said assets were related to the crime. Charges may never be filed, but the assets may be kept. If you can't definitively prove that the assets were not involved in any crime, you essentially have to prove your assets' innocence in order to get them back. Guilty until proven innocent. Alright, you're innocent, but your shit is guilty F. Where's my gavel? It was guilty too, so we locked it up. That's bang out of order. Child marriage in the US. This is true in most of the world. I have loved ones who were engaged to be married at the ages of 8 and 11. It's not right or appropriate, but it has always been the case in the vast majority of countries during the vast majority of centuries that children are married. It's not just the United States, it's honestly the entire world except for maybe 6 or 8 countries where it doesn't happen. Even in countries where it is illegal, it still happens for religious and cultural reasons every day. It's so wrong, and it makes my blood boil. Yeah, I have had this conversation with people before, and for some reason people are under the impression that this is unique or endemic to the Muslim world and sometimes Mormon groups. To be fair, both groups do practice it at various levels in different cultures, and at different points in history, but they are by far not the best example or the most common. Probably the very most common are various faiths in India, where it is a cultural thing instead of a religious one. Several different religions in India including Christianity and Islam and Hinduism and Buddhism and Jainism and Sikhism and tribal faiths and seculars engage in child marriages. That's approximately 1 billion people right there. But it also happens a lot in China. Again, across religious beliefs and no religious belief. That's because more than being religious it is cultural. I find that people tend to rail against religions because of this issue, and that's perfectly okay. But I wonder how effective it is, because it is not completely accurate. Child marriages have happened for at least 8,000 years that we have documented, and it has happened across different religions because it is a persistent part of so many cultures. Scalping, particularly the large-scale schemes perpetuated by Ticketmaster or artists in an attempt to make a few extra dishonest bucks. For a second I thought you meant taking the scalps of natives and turning them in for a bounty lol. Lol, yeah, pretty sure you'd get in a bit of trouble for that. Being an elderly driver. No, I do not mean 85-year-old people who are borderline. In 2019 in the US you could be 107 and bedbound with a still legitimate driver's license. You can't walk, but you can still cruise around in your 2002 Mercury if you want. What's interesting to me is that, if someone keeps practicing driving at a high level they can keep going basically, until they die, yet so many elderly people don't put in an effort leading to them slowly declining in skill, until they can't even commute safely. There's a 93-year-old that does club races at our local track, which is rated one of the most dangerous tracks in the world and he does it year after year without incident. He's old enough that he has to get a physical/mental checkup every 6 months to keep his racing license. I only have to do that every 5 years. That's pretty much my dad. He's 84 and raced his entire life. I guarantee he's more attentive and has more driving ability than 99% of people on the road. There are exactly 2 things in the world everyone unanimously agrees they are above average at, and those things are driving and laser tag. I'm actually not very good at the shooting part of laser tag. That's why I always bring a knife. The big shiny download button, which is really not the download button and when clicked, takes you to this page, which claims that my Mac has been infected by a virus and now I need to download their software to save it. Always gotta hover your mouse over all 6 download buttons to check the URLs, it's so annoying. From my experience, the real download button is almost always the least flashy one. A bit like Indiana Jones and the Holy Grail, but then boring. You have downloaded wisely. I know it says 2019. But Sweden just recently, 2016, made identity theft illegal. No joke. And in Sweden everyone's SSN, essentially the equivalent of SSN at least, is public information. Usually you just aren't interesting enough for someone to make a lookup on you to find out your SSN. Edit. As someone else pointed out below, we don't have the same type of system lol the US. We use YIMD XXXX, where the Zs are unique to you and your DOB. It isn't quite the same, but the impact is essentially the same. As far as I'm aware, your tax information is also public in Sweden. Legit, any Swedish national can go look at the tax information of another. Indeed it is so. You can also check who owns a car checking their plates. You can also find out if someone has been in court, what for, and what the verdict was. That's awesome. If someone pisses me off on the road, I can simply look him up and slide into their DMs instead of a potentially dangerous knee-jerk reaction on the road. There are several apps you can use to run someone's license plate to see pretty much all info about that car. How many owners it had when it was first put in traffic, if it's imported, and of course all tech spec. And if you want to know about the owner of the vehicle, you simply send a text to the Swedish DMV and you get an instant response with full name. Then you take that name and put in another app called Ratsit. In that app you see a lot about this person. Where they live, age, cars, phone numbers, marriage status, businesses etc. There's a paid version of that app where you get the person's full personal identity number. Pugs. Breeding pugs. Those poor animals go through so much pain, literally living is suffering. Overbred, overmutated, there needs to be license or temp breeding ban on them. Any breeding farms really, pugs are just one of the more extreme examples. We adopted a pug after her owner died. She always had breathing issues and would get breathless after a few minutes walking. We gave her the best life we could and she lived to be 14, which is a pretty good age for a pug. Poor thing died of a heart attack in the end. Edit. I should also defend her previous owner. She was an unwanted pet and the owner took her in and cared for her. That pug was devastated when she passed away. Telemarketing. On top of political, I got on some list and get 25/week asking if I want to sell my house. GRRR. For real. Telemarketing was absolutely out of control in the late 90s. Then they introduced the no-call lists, which helped but didn't solve the problem. Then people switched to cell phones and ditched landlines, and for a while I thought the problem was pretty much solved. Now I get like a dozen scam-likely calls a day and the FCC doesn't do shit about it. I've cut down a lot of these by blocking numbers as they come in. Hasn't solved the problem obviously, since they are always new or fudged, but I'd say in 5 years of blocking they've gone down by 90%. MLMs. My wife got invited to one of these presentations. It came with a free breakfast bar. We both know it's BS, but I was jealous that I couldn't go for the entertainment since I had work. She was updating me the whole time. Took over 1 hour and 45 minutes until they mentioned the product. Some sort of aloe vera drink that is miraculous. Even sillier since it grows wildly around here everywhere. My dad has stomach issues and aloe vera drink has helped him. But yeah, it grows in the yard and he makes his own drink out of it. No sense paying a bunch of money for something growing in your yard. Does his drink have a patented extraction process? I didn't think so. Now if you have a few minutes, can I buy you a cup of coffee? I have an opportunity I really think you and your dad would love. Oh man, that felt too real. Thanks for that. You got me looking for the emergency exit at work, trying to make a quick escape.